Next from the state capitol, Todd Meisch, president and CEO of the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, announces the chamber's endorsement of Republican Tom Cross for state treasurer. We'll then hear from candidate Cross discuss fiscal issues affecting the state, his campaign for treasurer, and how he would run the office differently than his Democrat opponent, State Senator Mike Frerichs. This runs about 20 minutes.
All right, well, welcome everybody. We appreciate you being here. This is a really historic day. The Illinois Chamber of Commerce represents the vast swaths of the business community and the diversity, both geographically and across industries. And we are very proud to be here today to announce our endorsement of Tom Cross for treasurer. And again, we think that the business community as a whole is very much supportive of Tom for a few very key reasons. First of all is that the office of the treasurer and really across state government is really evolving. We see that constitutional officers are stepping up and being more involved in the policy debate as opposed to just running their offices. And we think that is a noteworthy event, but something also that means the business community needs to step up and take a look at those races in a different way. And consequently, that is why we've decided to go ahead and make our first ever endorsement in the race for Illinois treasurer. The policy differences between Tom and his opponent are marked, especially in the financial area. The fiscal integrity of the state is the dominant issue facing both individuals and businesses, and consequently the Office of Treasurer is something that the business community and really all Illinoisans ought to take a closer look at and see what is the vision for moving the state forward, because the Treasurer's office is going to be involved not only programmatically, but also increasingly, as we've seen, in the policy debates that are facing the legislature and facing the public. So we think it's very important for the business community to step up in a race we've never stepped up in before and make a clear determination that one of these candidates is much better for the fiscal integrity of the state moving forward than the other. In particular, the issues of taxation is where the clearest difference is. We've got Senator Frerichs, who has been a friend of the chamber and is a fine legislator, but his philosophy of taxation is very different, where we think the state needs to go and where Tom also agrees with us it needs to go. When you're looking at the extension of the making permanent the income tax increase is very different. A service tax that the Senator Frerichs has proposed and supported in the past, and also a progressive income tax, which would be devastating to small businesses and the agriculture community in particular. Those are areas where we think voters need to know there's a clear distinction between these two candidates. This is the most important financial officer of the state of Illinois, and we think the public and certainly the business community needs to take note of this race. It's very important, and we think that, again, is noteworthy for everybody to pay a lot of attention to. So for that reason, we're very, again, happy to announce our endorsement of Tom Cross to be the next treasurer of the state of Illinois. Thank you.
Todd, thank you very much. I think we ought to stop now. It was very well done. I appreciate it. And look, I'm very, very appreciative and humbled by support of the chamber. This is one of the most respected and impressive groups in this building, and really for that matter around the state. You look at, I think about my own legislative district, every community has a chamber, and they're made up of just about every walk of life in that particular community. I think about Oswego, where it's the school superintendent and the small business owner and the banker, and the list goes on and on. And so to have your support, Todd, and your board support and all those members means an awful lot to me. I think as I've traveled around the state, you get reminded of it is an impressive state. It's a good state, and we have great farmland, we have great universities, we have great medical research facilities. We love to argue about our ball teams. They're great, and sometimes not so great, but it's a good state. And unfortunately, the last few years, we have fallen into a spot that we're not doing so well, and we need to turn that around. We need to create more jobs, and we need to also say to employers in this state that we get it. And that has not been the case. And whether you're looking at credit agencies who have given us just recently, since this past budget was passed, a negative outlook, to polling that has suggested that Illinois residents don't trust government from either, I guess, a Main Street to a Wall Street perspective, it's not going well. and we need to turn things around, and we need to do a better job of creating jobs. And one of there are three things we've talked about in this race for treasurer, and we've been very vigilant about that. Is one, we need to insist on following the Constitution. We need to insist on balancing the budget. We haven't seen that happen in a number of years. We spent last year alone $300 million in late fees and penalties to nursing homes and hospitals and doctors and pharmacists because we didn't pay our bills on time. And this year's budget was about as blatant a disregard for the Constitution as we've seen in a long time, where everybody agreed on a certain number. That number even got a little higher than what everybody agreed on, but they were spending even beyond that. And as I've said, if I'm fortunate enough to get elected treasurer, we feel the treasurer has a responsibility and a duty to enforce that provision of the Constitution. And if that means ultimately, after working with the General Assembly and they disregard the Constitution, if that means we have to go to court to enforce it, we're going to do that. The General Assembly needs to be held accountable in terms of following the Constitution. Second thing that continues to plague this state is fraud and corruption. We were charged by the SEC a couple of years ago with securities fraud because not this administration, but the one before this one, went to credit agencies and bond houses and lied about the financial condition of the state. That's unacceptable. We want to create an integrity unit in the Treasurer's office that is proactive in these areas of fraud and corruption, in the pension system where we have examples of fraud. When we read about it in your papers or hear about it on TV, it's too late. We need to be proactive. And third, I think we can do a better job of transparency. We don't always lay out for people the true financial condition of the state. And we want to create on a quarterly basis, we have created a report card of the true financial picture of the state, ranging from unemployment to debt to unpaid bills to the pension system, unfunded liability, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm one of the guys that thinks we can fix this. I think we can turn it around. I understand why people want to leave the state of Illinois. I get that. I've spent a lot of time talking to people, but I'm not interested in leaving. I'm interested in saving the state, and I think we can turn it around. I think it's going to be a tough journey. It's going to be probably a long journey, but it's worth saving, and I think we can do it. And getting your support, Todd, and working with you to help us get to that point and making this a great state again means a lot to me, and I very much appreciate it. And if you have any questions, we'll try to answer them.
Well, Leader Frost, there are sure a lot of negatives about Illinois, and you've enumerated a lot of them. And a lot of them have happened while Dan Rutherford was treasurer. Good thing he's going to be getting out of it. What are you going to do that's going to be good? And I know you're going to say it's not Dan Rutherford's fault, but I mean, how do you reconcile the fact that all these bad things have been happening in the last 4 years plus, but now that Tom Cross is going to be treasurer, it's going to be totally different?
Look, we all come in these offices from our different backgrounds and perspectives. The traditional roles of the treasurer are to invest the money. We have the iCash program. We have Bright Start. I think Dan's done a great job. I think you look at the investment record of Dan, and it's impressive. And I give him a lot of credit for that. I think Bright Start's recovered, and I think his iCash program, as we know, has been very aggressive. I happen to think you need to, Todd alluded to this, you can use this office in a more aggressive way than it's traditionally been used. It doesn't mean anyone's bad. It doesn't mean anyone's at fault. I just happen to think you can and should be engaged in the problems of the day within the confines of the law. The Constitution is very clear, Dave, that we have to have a balanced budget. The treasurer is also empowered to watch the money and invest the money. So you connect those two and you say, wait a minute, if they don't follow the Constitution, someone needs to step in, and I happen to believe that should be us.
Yeah, how are you going to be better at getting the legislature to pass better policies than, if not Mr. Rutherford, then Senator Fredericks?
I don't think I've seen any commitment or suggestion from Senator Fredericks that this is the route to go. He voted this year for a blatantly unbalanced budget. He's been dismissive of the idea of balancing the budget and using the treasurer's office to do that. So it's just different approaches to the office. I haven't seen actually that much of anything from him on how he would do anything like this. I think the office can be a fiscal watchdog for taxpayers, and we intend to be very, very aggressive.
Well, listening to both of you, it sounds like higher taxes aren't the answer, service taxes are not the answer, progressive tax is not the answer. What revenue streams would you open up, and or what services would you cut to try to get the budget down?
Imagine for a moment, a nice dream perhaps, I hope not a dream, that we lower unemployment to states that are comparable to the Midwest. We have one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. Every time you lower your unemployment rate, you realize more revenue. You're growing the economy. And you look at, again, those states around us. I think that's what's a source of frustration for a lot of folks, that everybody went through some struggles in the mid-2000s when the economy suffered and became depressed or recessed, however you want to, whatever term you want to use. And the other states got their act together, so to speak, and we haven't. So lowering the unemployment creates significant revenue. If you lowered it by 3 points, you recognize, conservatively speaking, $400 to $500 million in new revenue.
Why not go to court over this budget right now?
I don't believe I think, you mean personally me or the current, in the research I've done on this, it's the Treasurer's Office that has the standing to do that. Kind of a unique position. We've done a lot of research on this, been working with the law school in Chicago on it, and the Treasurer's Office is vested with this unique, is vested with the legal term is standing, that you have the ability to do that.
Has it been done before?
Not that I'm aware of.
Wouldn't that be kind of tricky to have the judicial branch telling the legislative branch what to do with the money?
I don't know that it's necessarily a matter of what to do with the money, but what you're saying is, General Assembly, you have $100. This is how much you have to spend. You've spent 110. You've got to keep it at 100 or below. You decide how you get there. You decide if you want more revenue. You decide if you want to make cuts, but you can't go over 100. And there's a reason the Constitution mandates a balanced budget. I called a friend of mine, who's a Speaker of the House in Indiana, when we were exploring this. I said, Brian Bosma, I said, you guys balance your budget? He goes, yeah, we balance it to the penny. And he says, it's doable. And he said, we use the term an honestly balanced budget. And I think we know what has gone on in this state. So it's doable. There's a reason the Constitution mandates it, and we're paying as a state dramatically by not balancing the budget.
Tom, would you do, or someone else, the scoring of bills, let's say with our pensions, had we had a reflection within the budget of what the actual cost of the pensions or a proposed pension increase would cost the state, is that something that your office as treasurer would be supportive of?
We have this, as I alluded to, I think you weren't here, I apologize. We've created this report card, and we sent one out, the report card idea a couple weeks ago, and we'll be glad to provide you another one. And we list about 15 or 20 different things of what we do, because we want to lay out the true financial condition of the state. And certainly pensions is one of those areas that we will focus on. I would like to think, and I believe, based on the people I've talked to as I've traveled around the state, that I think if we had done a better job, and I'm going to look forward, of laying out the financial picture of the state in a true sense, perhaps we wouldn't have gotten to the point we are. I'd like to think that we had. And so we're going to be as comprehensive as we can in a variety of areas.
Todd, can I ask you a question? If this is your first endorsement and you are a nonpartisan group, on one hand, well, people would say, big surprise, the state chamber is endorsing a Republican candidate. Why is this the first time you've endorsed a person, and to what extent did you have an internal discussion about, is this going to interfere with our ability to continue to be a nonpartisan group and work with members across the aisle?
Well, it's critical for the business community to be engaged politically. That is what drives what happens here at the State House. Both electing conscientious legislators and constitutional officers is absolutely critical. People who we feel don't have the right ideology to move the economy and the state forward are engaged politically heavily. So the business community has only got to step up our political involvement. And consequently, I'll just be straightforward, we're going to support the people we think really make a difference in a positive way for the state and the business climate. And in this instance, we did have an internal discussion among our members, and it was very straightforward that Tom's record as a legislator and his vision and the policy differences between the two candidates made it a really pretty easy decision that we ought to step up, and that the business community as a whole ought to know this is an important race and Tom Cross is the right person to be the next treasurer.
Is this a different time, or is this more of a reflection of your new leadership of the chamber, that the chamber's endorsing a candidate?
I don't think it's the transition in leadership of the chamber. So we are very much a membership-driven organization. So consequently, members tell us what to do. We don't do not the other way around. So my becoming president didn't really have a role in this. This was the members getting together, talking about it, and deciding which course to action. And they instructed me to be here today to announce our endorsement.
Is there a particular thing with Eric's that you don't like, or several particular things?
Oh, number one, I like Mike Frericks. I will tell you that. He is a conscientious legislator. He has been engaged on a number of issues, even enterprise zones and other things. So there are things in his background that are positive, I will tell you. But I just come back to the a conscientious legislator who has very, very different policy goals than the bulk of the business community is a real problem. And consequently, Tom is, again, has even more distinguished legislative career and has the vision for the Treasurer's Office and the state that the business community believes is the way forward.
Well, to dovetail off one of Terry's questions, if I'm running against Representative Cross, I'm thinking, yeah, the chamber, Republican, duh, as the kids would say. So I'm thinking that, and I'm also thinking, these endorsements really don't mean that much. If I've got it, then it's an important one, but, you endorse the other guy, well, that doesn't mean that much. So what's the right note on that?
Well, I think the difference is, number one, is that the business community as a whole, they vote and they have influence. Small business in particular routinely polls as one of the most respected organizations or institutions in America. So when small businesses are starting to talk about a treasurer's race and saying, you know what, this is important to us, that we think that has an impact with not only with the employer community, which is very important, but people who agree with those type of people and their engagement in the community. So we think that's the most important thing. The second thing is, I think it is noteworthy that this is the first time that we have decided that a treasurer's race is very important, important to the future of the state, and we think that would be noteworthy to the public and the voters as well.
I'm wondering too about the cohesiveness of the Republican ticket. When you see Mr. Rauner, he's out by himself. You don't really see him with the other Republican folks. Sometimes we see Judy with the governor, who's of the opposite party. Well, what do you think about that, about the Republicans being together this year and you being excited about Bruce Rauner and the rest of the GOP?
Well, that's just the nature of campaigning. I mean, I'm running my race, Judy runs hers, Bruce runs his. But we're all working together where we can. Are there going to be differences? Yeah, it's life. It's the political process. But I think you'll see that, one, it's just the nature of the beast, if you will, and we're working together, and I feel in a very good way.
You're in a race with two good candidates, yourself and Senator Ferris, so you're busy enough. But how hard are you going to be working for Rauner?
I'm working for all Republicans. As I was doing a radio interview earlier, and I spent some time with. I saw Jim Durkin at the fair and talked to him and talked to his guys. I said, whatever I can do in my legislative district around Kendall County, let me know whatever I can do to help. I want to be there for you and for your candidates. So, Dave, I think there's a lot of cooperation in this campaign among all Republicans, and there should be.
Tom, would you pledge to be your own man, and that if a Governor Rauner proposed some fiscal policies that you thought made no sense, that you would come out, have a press conference, or communicate that you're in opposition?
The Constitution doesn't pick Republicans or Democrats. The Constitution is very, very clear about the need to have a balanced budget, and if the governor is a Republican or Democrat and doesn't adhere to the Constitution, we're going to continue the philosophy of enforcing that Constitution regardless of the party. And I feel very strongly about that.
Your opponent just spent over $1 million on TV ads. Can you and do you intend to keep up with that pace?
It's kind of ironic. Here's a guy that went 6 years not paying his real estate taxes and now is paying for his TV ads a month in advance. I think that says something about him.
What's your intention as far as advertising and the budget?
We will have more than enough adequate resources to get our message out of making sure we turn the state around, that we balance the budget, we have integrity and transparency, and I feel very comfortable about where we are in terms of resources. So, well, thank you all very, very much.
Vote ends in a tie. What sort of tie-breaking competition would you suggest between yourself and the senator?
Well, it's not going to involve basketball, because there's another big difference between the two of us. I'm thinking bocce ball. Have a great afternoon. Ending on a good question.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.